You learned how to carry everyone's weight before you learned how to ask someone to hold yours, and now you're trapped in this identity you built as the strong one, the reliable one, the one who fixes everyone's problems, while your own pile up in silence and asking for help feels like admitting you were lying the whole time, like confessing you're not actually as capable as everyone believes, like pulling back the curtain to reveal that the person holding everyone together is barely holding themselves. You became the emotional support system for your entire family, your friend group, maybe even strangers who could sense you had the capacity to carry more. And somewhere in that process you stopped being a person with needs and became a function, a role, a service that people depend on but never think to replenish. And the worst part is you're so good at it now, so practiced at being the one who holds space for everyone else's breakdown, that you forgot how to have your own. Or maybe you never learned in the first place because there was never room for your pain, when everyone else's was always louder, more urgent, more deserving of attention. You tell yourself you're independent, self-sufficient, that you don't need what other people need. But independence became isolation, and self-sufficiency became silent suffering. And now you're so far inside this prison you built from strength that you can't remember what it feels like to let someone catch you before you fall. To trust that someone would even want to. To believe that needing help doesn't erase everything you've done for everyone else. You're the first person people call when their world is falling apart, but you have no one to call when yours does. You listen to everyone's problems for hours but can't talk about your own for more than 2 minutes without feeling like you're burdening them. You give advice like it costs you nothing but secretly you're drowning in the same issues you're helping others solve. You smile through your own pain because showing it would make people uncomfortable, and you've been trained to prioritize everyone's comfort over your own honesty. You carry conversations, carry emotional labor, carry the weight of being everyone's safe space, but you have nowhere safe to put your own weight down. You say you're fine so automatically that the words do not even mean anything anymore. They're just the password you give to keep people from looking too close. You're exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix because it's not physical tiredness. It's the bone-deep fatigue of performing strength for so long that you forgot it's supposed to be real, not a costume you put on every morning. You watch other people ask for help easily, naturally, without shame, and you feel something dark. Not quite envy, more like confusion. Because when you think about saying those words, about admitting you can't handle something, about asking someone to help you carry what you've been carrying alone, your throat closes up and your mind floods with every reason why you don't deserve to ask, why they wouldn't help anyway. Why being strong means figuring it out yourself like you always have. You weren't born like this, allergic to vulnerability, terrified of being seen as weak, convinced that asking for help is the same as admitting defeat. This was trained into you, carved into your nervous system by the people who needed you to be strong, because they couldn't be, who praised your independence because it meant they didn't have to show up for you, who told you how mature you were, how capable, how reliable, when what they really meant was, thank God, we don't have to worry about you because we're too busy with our own problems. You learned early that your needs were an inconvenience, that your pain was less important than keeping the peace, that love was something you earned by being useful, rather than something you received just for existing. And so you became useful, indispensable, the one who fixes things, and in the process you buried the part of you that needed fixing so deep that now you can't find it, even when you're alone, even when you're breaking, even when every part of you is screaming that you can't do this anymore. You became the parent when you should have been the child, the therapist when you needed therapy, the strong one when what you really needed was permission to be weak, to fall apart, to not have all the answers. And nobody ever gave you that permission because they needed you to keep being their foundation, even though foundations crack under too much weight, even though you were never supposed to carry all this alone, even though asking you to be strong all the time was asking you to be less than human. Here's the truth that's going to hurt before it heals. Being strong all the time isn't strength, it's a trauma response. A survival mechanism you developed because showing weakness wasn't safe, because the people who were supposed to catch you dropped you instead, because you learned that you only matter when you're functional, when you're helping, when you're making other people's lives easier. And the moment you need something, the moment you're not the strong one, you become invisible, or worse, you become a burden. You don't actually believe you're too strong to need help. You believe you're too worthless to deserve it, that your needs are less valid than everyone else's, that asking for support would reveal the truth you've been hiding, which is that you're just as broken as everyone you've been holding together, just as scared, just as lost, just as desperate for someone to see you and stay anyway. The people who praise your strength, who call you mature, who rely on you to hold them together, they don't actually see you, they see what you do for them. And you've built your entire identity around being useful, because you're terrified that if you stop performing strength, if you stop being the reliable one, if you admit you need help, they'll realize you're not special, you're not strong, you're just a person who learned how to survive by making yourself small enough that your needs never got in anyone's way. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do because it requires you to dismantle the entire identity you built to survive, To admit that being the strong one was never a choice. It was a cage. And you've been locked inside it so long that freedom feels more terrifying than staying trapped. It means risking rejection from people who only loved the version of you that served them. It means accepting that some people will disappear the moment you stop being useful. It means grieving the relationships that were built on your silence and maintained by your strength, and all of that is terrifying because what if you finally ask for help and nobody comes? What if you finally show people you're struggling and they turn away? What if the thing you've been most afraid of your whole life turns out to be true? That you're only valuable when you're strong, and the moment you're weak, you're alone. But here's the other truth, the one that might save you. The people who leave when you ask for help were never really there in the first place. They were using you, and realizing that is going to hurt like hell, but it's also going to set you free, because once you stop performing strength for people who don't deserve it, once you stop carrying people who never intended to carry you back, once you let go of relationships that only work when you're silent about your own needs, you create space for something real, for people who don't need you to be strong, who can handle your weakness without making you feel like a burden, who understand that asking for help isn't a transaction where you lose value. It's an act of trust, of intimacy, of letting someone see the parts of you that aren't polished and letting them stay anyway. You can start now, not by asking for massive help, not by trauma dumping on someone who hasn't earned that trust, but by practicing small vulnerabilities with safe people, by saying, "I'm actually not okay," when someone asks, instead of defaulting to "I'm fine." By letting someone do something for you without immediately trying to repay them or prove you didn't really need it, by sitting with the discomfort of being helped instead of being the helper, and realizing that the world doesn't end, that you're not weak, that letting someone hold you for a moment doesn't erase all the times you held them. Start by acknowledging to yourself that you've been carrying weight you were never supposed to carry alone. That the people who made you responsible for their emotional stability weren't doing you a favor. They were stealing your childhood, your rest, your right to be taken care of, and you're allowed to be angry about that. You're allowed to grieve what you lost by being strong too soon. You're allowed to stop now, to put some of this weight down, to let other people carry their own problems while you finally address yours. Find one person, maybe a therapist, maybe a friend who's proven they can hold space without making it about them, and practice saying the words, practice admitting you're struggling, practice asking for what you need even though every cell in your body is screaming that you're being selfish, being weak, being too much, and keep practicing until the voice that tells you you're a burden gets quieter than the voice that knows you're a human being who deserves support, just like everyone you've been supporting for years. Being strong was never the problem, being strong alone was. And the people who taught you that asking for help is weakness were the ones who benefited most from your silence, from your service, from your willingness to carry their weight while pretending you had none of your own. You were too young to carry what they gave you, too small to hold up the people who should have been holding you, and the fact that you survived it, that you became strong enough to handle it, doesn't mean it was okay, doesn't mean you weren't damaged by it, doesn't mean you have to keep living like that now that you're old enough to choose differently. Asking for help still feels like weakness because you were punished for needing things when you should have been nurtured. Because the people who were supposed to teach you that dependence is human taught you that independence is survival. Because you learned that love is conditional and the condition is being strong, being useful, being the one who gives and never asks to receive. And unlearning that is going to take time. It's going to take courage. It's going to take finding people who prove that you can be weak and loved, needy and valued, struggling and still worthy of care. You were strong when you had to be, and that saved you, but you don't have to be strong anymore. You have permission now to be human, to need help, to ask for it without shame. And the people who can't handle that were never going to be there for you anyway. And that knowledge, as painful as it is the thing that finally sets you free to find the people who will.